today you can become an entrepreneur. You don't learn to be one, you go do it. And the first way you do it is maybe spend some money and put that on your P&L, your profit and loss, and then you see what happens. Who knows what might happen?
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Up Your Average. We are experiencing another bout of technical difficulties this morning, but that's okay. Doug will jump in here as soon as he can, and I am thankful for your ability to and willingness to join us this week. We are going to talk about a very similar topic to last week, but more practical in our expression of what is it like to be an entrepreneur and a small business person. And so that's what I wanted to jump into with you this morning. And if Doug gets in here, he'll be in here. If not, then I'm going to go solo with you. And I even want to throw out a challenge at the end of this to any of you during a entrepreneurial bent to your journey. And so as you think about life as a entrepreneur, or why you might even want to be something like an entrepreneur, I'd consider a couple of those Latin phrases. The first one would be caveat emptor, which is let the buyer beware. We are going to throw out ideas to you, some suggestions to you, and some possibilities that may or may not work out for you. They may have complicated situations behind them, but that's no reason to ignore a possibility of being a business person. And if you're going to be caveat emptor and you let the buyer beware, just instead of thinking what could go wrong, think what can I do? What's going to go right with this thing? And then the second Latin phrase I would say is carpe diem, seize the day. Today is the day. Today's a great day. Who knows what today has in store for you? But the idea of thinking about using your time in a productive way is really an encouraging idea for not only you, but those in your circle. And so with the possibility of having a little entity or a gig in place, let me give you some suggestions and some ways to think about it as you look into the future. And even some of these ideas I'm going to throw out there to you, they may be great ideas. I don't even know. I don't have time to chase too many more ideas. So I'm just going to throw out ideas. And if somebody wants to grab one of them and run with it, that's a cool thing. There was a quote I found a few years ago. It said, "Don't worry about people stealing an idea. If it's an original one, you'll have to take it and ram it down their throats." So that people love to hear ideas, but very few will execute and run with them. And so the first thing, if you're going to be a business person, you can kind of test the waters today. You can do the gig economy where you go do something very basically and don't commit yourself to a lot of expenditures up front. You just test the waters to see if it's something that's out there. We used the quote from our friend last week that Mitch Anthony said, "Find a need and meet that need, and you will never have to work a day in your life." And that's what having your own little gig can be. And I think a benefit of having a gig is it keeps you mentally active, it keeps you optimistic, and it keeps you helping people on a constant basis. And so Caleb helped me with this basic spreadsheet. And you don't have to get too complicated when you're starting something. This is kind of the basic spreadsheet that you might want to have if you're going to have a gig. You just need the date, a description of what happened, whether it was an income or you spent some money. And if you spend some money, you just put it in one column, you have some income, you put it in the other column, and you just put the data of those things and you just keep tallying them. And this little basic spreadsheet gives you the profit and loss over on the other side. And what I said to you last week is the main thing you need to think about is the intent to make a profit. Not that you have to make a profit, but the intent to do that. So if your business idea involved your internet, it involved your cell phone, it involved reading and learning things, what happens is those things become expenditures, and then you can take those things off of the income that you have and essentially maybe even write off those losses depending on the structure of your business. And so if let's just say that you were in a 25% tax bracket and your cell phone was $40 a month, if you didn't have your little entrepreneurial gig, you would pay the $40 on that. But with a gig, you get to take your 25% tax bracket against that $40 cell phone. And now your cell phone bill dropped from 40 to 30 because you got a 25% write-off on that. And so that's conceptually the very basics of high finance and what it'll look like for you if you do start your own gig. And if you need a copy or something like that spreadsheet, reach out to Caleb. He's our accounting guru, and he pointed out that there are a ton of templates out there, and I bet he'd even be happy to work with you to encourage you in that process of how to just record your basic expenses and income opportunities, because that's the beginning of what you need to know. And if you let the accounting intimidate you, a lot of people won't do anything because it'll just seem too big to them. But it's not that big. It's just that simple. Just 2 columns. And then if you need something fancier than that, then the person that's helping you with your books can zero that in a little better for you. So that's the first very basic thing you want to have. And it's not too complicated. And so the youngsters, the hipsters, call this a side hustle or a gig is what your business is. And I was just taking it in a couple different ideas. And so I was presenting to you that maybe one of you could even be a test tube for us, or if you know somebody that wants to come on a future podcast and we'll coach you through the process. My idea was, what could we do to offer some ideas to a 15-year-old and a 65-year-old? So we're presenting to you the possibilities of somebody who is not having to pay their health insurance because their parents usually do that until 26, by using a 15-year-old as an example of a gig or a small business, or a 65-year-old who now that health insurance is being paid for through Medicare. So the earliest example I can think of this is when Caleb Tyner started his first gig. He had an eBay business, and he was probably 12 at the oldest when he did that. And he was simply finding goods someplace and turning around and flipping them and selling them someplace else for a profit. And that wasn't a ton of energy and effort on his part, but it was enough to provide him some pocket money. And that's kind of the idea that we were thinking of for both a 15-year-old and a 65-year-old, that if you are able to have that gig, if you're able to jump in there, then maybe you can do that and also keep yourself active and energized in that process. And so the 2 ideas I have are for those little subsets of the economy. And what I call them is, you can be a dependence coach or an independence coach. Those are the 2 side hustles. And then I came up with a list of businesses that you could do within that. And in those 2 businesses, I thought that it was reasonable you could do these things for a minimum of $25 an hour. So if you wanted some extra spending money, some extra pocket cash, you don't necessarily have to go out to the workforce and find that. You can jump into the possibility of a side hustle, and those two columns are the ones I came up with. So the dependence coach and the independence coach. The dependence coach is for my 15-year-old entrepreneur who wants to market their business or a 65-year-old. The dependent coach wants to build a business model that makes you, as the customer, dependent on them. Does that make sense? That a teenager wants to build a niche to make some money so they aren't necessarily required to go out and find a job at the Burger King like I did, but they can build a niche of people and help them in a way that creates an ongoing cash flow for them, maybe even into their college days. So the first of the roles inside that dependence coach that I was thinking of is that you want to build the idea in the 65-year-old or the 60-year-old or in that range, that they're just dependent on your skill set. And you can constantly, as a 15-year-old, improve that skill set. And so the first sleeve within the dependence coach I thought of was technology related. I think most 60 to 65-year-olds would be willing to pay their dependence coach $25 an hour to sit down with them and help them understand how to better use their cell phone. If not most of them, there's enough that you would find a niche that you would keep yourself busy. You could probably even go to a local assisted living and talk to the nurse in the assisted living or the assisted, maybe the senior apartments there, and build a network of people there that you're helping. And so you might go from apartment to apartment, helping people with their phones and helping them better utilize those. Along that same line might be within the phone coach and app coach, where you're helping them figure out which apps might be most useful for them. My uncle was hard of hearing, and we came up with the idea to help him better communicate that he could use Google Translate and use it to translate English to English, which wasn't in his scope of reasoning because he wasn't a digital native. He was kind of a digital alien, is what they call us older people. But a digital native will think of things that you can use your phone for. So simply using Google Translate for somebody that was hard of hearing, we could put his phone on and sit it on the table. And when somebody else was talking to him, he could not only watch them and try to hear what they're saying, but it would translate English to English and put the words on large screen on his telephone so he could better understand what's going on rather than feel like an outsider there. So that's just an example of some apps that a young person could help somebody put on there. They could also be a password coach or a computer coach. I think a lot of people in their 60s don't change their passwords frequently enough, and a password coach to show you how to do that and how to keep that up to speed could very likely save you thousands of dollars from having your not only your identity stolen, but also maybe some of your bank monies and things like that. So those are some technology ideas, and even maybe a Wi-Fi coach. Like if you're in a house and your Wi-Fi is not doing the best, trying to get a hold of those people and get some things done is nearly impossible to get help from those companies on the 800 number. And so what the youngsters might know is some Wi-Fi hacks and things to help you better use your technology. For example, somebody that was in that situation helped me get rid of our former Wi-Fi delivery system, and we're using now T-Mobile hotspot type thing that T-Mobile was able to integrate, give us better Wi-Fi in our house, not only for our computers, but for our TVs at a much reduced cost. And so those are some things that the young dependence coach can do on the technology side. Now, on the non-technology side, I think all of us need those teenagers that they can come do things like they can be my lawn master. They can help me with my lawn. They can help me with other physical needs that I might have within the household. And having the youngsters help me move things or do things of that nature would definitely be worth $25 an hour for me. And then I also thought of what if you were a declutter person, a declutter specialist. The decluttering is a critical thing as we age. One of the most frequent causes of, or a frequent, not the most, but a frequent cause of death for older people is tripping. And the tripping risk can be helped by a declutter coach. And a declutter coach can not only help you get rid of things you're not using, they can help you organize those in a way to bring them to the maximum financial benefit to you. So that's my dependence coach. That's my 15-year-old who's looking for an entrepreneurial possibility. That's just the title I gave them, some of the roles they can fill within there. I think all of those would most likely create a $25 an hour business model. And they could grow more than that, I think, if that's what somebody wanted to do. But with that business model, you can take expenses that you have and make those pre-tax expenses and spread the money that you have in your wealth. Now I'm going to flip to the 65-year-old, and now I'm going to call that person's title an independent coach. A 65-year-old, I think their target market would be their octogenarian friends, the 80-year-olds that are beginning to lose some of their independence, and there's this anxiety and the fear of losing my independence. And so as an independence coach, I'm going to act as a cheerleader for my 80-year-old and older friends and customers that I'll have. And we've got a lot of people that we know in the industry that do that. One of our friends runs a business called Senior Home Companions, and they actually will send people into the homes of older people to help with a number of things within the house. And they used to use those people they would send in the home as independent contractors, but I think some of the rules and regulations shifted that reduced the possibility of them being able to do that anymore. So you might be able to go in and do that as your own business model and to operate in a very productive way as an independent coach. And so an independent coach could do a number of things to help the 80-year-old in their journey of life. One of the ideas I thought of was a meal prepper. If you're gifted in the kitchen, you can get a food sealer. You can package meals together and prep meals for the older folks that maybe don't get as many healthy meals. And easily that would provide a benefit to them in ways that would create a huge bond for your business and a bond for them. A secondary way that I think is really creative that I've not heard of too many people doing it is a private Uber coach. A private Uber coach would not only be able to take somebody that is maybe losing their driving skills and get them from point A to point B, but part of the coaching process is to train them in the idea of, you know what, maybe you're not driving as much as you used to do. Maybe you're paying a large amount for car insurance. Maybe you're paying a lot of money for maintenance on that car and maybe even car payments. What if instead of paying all those things, I just become your private Uber coach and get you from point A to point B and do that in a way that's predictable, reliable, and expands your independence beyond anything you ever thought before. That's maybe one of the roles within an independent coach. You don't have to do all of these. These are just things that I think are worth $25 an hour to other people. A personal trainer, if you're in your mid-60s or so and you're staying fit, and you can learn ideas to help that 80-year-old with their health. I think that the idea of being able to get up and sit down and do that and do a number of other things would be a great benefit for those folks. And then as an independent coach, you could even integrate those dependence coaches, those 16-year-olds who are trying to jump into your circle and your pocketbook. And you can even market yourself to those folks because there are things that the younger people need that a 65-year-old brings with great value, great energy, and great experience. And some of the ideas that I think that make sense for the younger population in your business model, how about a hobby tutor? Have you thought about it being a hobby tutor? Caleb is a woodworker, and he is passionate about woodworking. But a lot of times, the people my age weren't woodworkers, and they aren't able to necessarily pass that trait on to their kids. Maybe a 40-year-old dad isn't a woodworker and doesn't know how to pass that on to their kids. And if you had woodworking skills, you could tutor youngsters to do that, which is a great value. Maybe it's plumbing skills or whatever, to take the place of former shop classes, for example. So, or maybe take the place of former home ec classes, where you're teaching those young people life skills that may be just as important as their academic skills, but you would present yourself as a hobby tutor. My kids had those tutors as they were growing up. We had Connie Laycock, a friend of ours, taught our kids how to knit. Michael Langmack did the woodworking things. We had a number of people that were coaches in those areas. And I think that's a great business opportunity to not only take the wisdom and experience you have, but to build yourself a multi-generational friendship. An academic tutor, those are a big deal. Your skill set can go a long way. I know we've got a variety of backgrounds on the line today. We've got some chemists, we've got some specialists in math and other places like that. And those skills, even though you're not getting paid professionally to do those today, those are very transferable and very beneficial to the younger generation. And I would definitely take advantage of that tutoring role from the traditional academic realm. And then this is the one, this is one of the kind of either the young or the old, either the independence coach or the dependence coach could do this. A dog watcher. I have no idea how I couldn't comprehend how big the pet care industry has expanded in the past years, but it is big money. And I bet $25 an hour is a minimum of what you could do. You can do very well being a dog watcher. You could also be a home sitter. There's a variety of things that you can do. And to take those things and move them into a way that you're getting some extra pocket money, you're not only doing that, you're keeping your mind sharp, you're helping other people, and you're bringing great value to the culture we have. Those are my two main sleeves of entrepreneurial possibilities: a dependent coach and an independent coach. And boy, if you know anybody that's wanting to put their foot into that water and jump into it in one way or another, we would love to coach them into that possibility and give them some encouragement in that. There's a number of podcasts that will talk through ideas like this. There's a fellow by the name of Nick Loper. He has one podcast called The Side Hustle. He just goes on and on and on with a variety of possibilities. And particularly if you're thinking about something like this, I would give him a listen and see if there's others out there that might help you as well. But you can take your personality and add great value to many people, and I would encourage you to do that. And just know you can do it. Today is the day. You can do it. You can bring great value to many. And this is probably the last point I wanted to give you today. I found this little, I don't know if you'd call it a quote or what you would call it. It's a little article. It was in the publication Chicken Soup for the Soul that I read many years ago. And the quote is this. It was by a fellow by the name of John Holt. Said, "Not many years ago, I began to play the cello. Most people would say that what I am doing is learning to play the cello, but these words carry into our minds the strange idea that there exist two very different processes. One, learning to play the cello, and two, playing the cello. They imply that I will do the first until I've completed it, at which point I will stop the first process and begin the second. In short, I will go on learning to play until I have learned to play, and then I will begin to play. Of course, that is nonsense. There are not two processes, but one. We learn to do something by doing it. There is no other way." And that's what I wanted to leave you all with today, that today you can become an entrepreneur. You don't learn to be one, you go do it. And the first way you do it is maybe spend some money and put that on your P&L, your profit and loss, and then you see what happens. Who knows what might happen? I think it'd be a lot of fun, and I'd encourage you to go for it today. In the meantime, I hope this weekend is one of your best, and I hope this helped you up your average. I'll see you all soon, and enjoy your weekend.